my father. Hey, and it's been a few months more since I've seen my brother.
1, 2, 3.
You know it's everything when I get that cold and sad. Seems like lately all I ever do is ask.
Up and yell like you like me now.
There you go.
I thought about it for a minute. I'm like, it's a biker bar. It's not like you had the van. He can't kidnap me. I'll just stand up.
Oh yeah, hang on, keep it louder. Show me happy to. Oh yeah, hang on, gotta scan your face.
Sturgis American looks like a sweetheart. Give it up for the hilarious, the queen of animal, Amber Klear.
Clap better than that, I gotta send this to Grandma.
My bed. It's been too long since I cleared my head. It's been too long since I saved my soul. And I don't think I can take too long, too much more. But I still try. I still try. You know I still try. I still try. I still try. You know I still try.
Let me tell you guys a secret. I shit in my yard once. I'm Amber, like the color. Whether you learn if you're creepy. I have a lot of fun in life. I do a lot of comedy shows. I travel with a lot of comedians, and I love it. Like, I'm recording with you right now. Like, I don't do drugs or drink. I make bad enough decisions sober. But I'm smart. I don't know if you can tell by looking at me. Like, I'm smart. But I'm stupid smart. I'm so smart I got a 36 on my ACT. I'm so stupid I took it again because I thought I was at 100. They were always like, Amber, why is your hair so curly? It's because I got such kinky thoughts. Glad you guys didn't get the memo that my mouth is just like a gay man's ass. Shit just comes out. And it's a fun place to be. My vagina is just like a dump truck. It's oversized, funny color, and boys still want to put things in it. Fuck you, I'm gorgeous. It's perfect. I am perfect. It's okay if you don't laugh at me. I understand how hard it is to laugh at incredibly attractive people. Fuck you two for laughing real hard. We look like sisters, bitch. I'm pretty fit. I can take you. I'm good at what I got on this dress pan. Show you a whole lot more of me later.
You guys ready for your headliner? Let's keep it going for Miss Amber Klear.
I'm sending this to my grandma so we can get to a little better than that. Let's see.
I know that you guys can tell, like, I'm super good at flirting. My name is Amber Klear, and I am a stand-up comedian. I am a producer and a writer and a fundraiser and a secret political campaign runner.
So I'm out one night, and it was after I'd bought my house and I was fixing up myself, and I see a guy, and I'm like, oh, he could be my Bob Vila, a real fixer-upper, if you know what I mean. So I sit next to him, and I'm like trying to flirt by telling him like how good I am at remodeling my home. And I start to like tell him like I ripped out the carpet and there were hardwood floors underneath, and I painted stuff and it was beautiful, and I put up these majestic red curtains. And then he like kept trying to like change the subject, and I was like, all I really know is like dick jokes and remodeling. So I'm sitting there, and he like starts talking about some TV show, whatever. So then he looks at me, and he looks at my hair, and he looks back at me, and he's like, do the curtains match the carpet? And I was like, no, bro, I told you, I have hard wood.
So by day, I am a social media marketing consultant. I'm a business consultant and a social media content creator. I ended up doing social media marketing because I created my own job. I have a super varied background where I've worked as an EMT. I got my EMT license super early. I have worked at a hair shop. I've worked at 2 separate newspapers. I was an intern, a paid intern at a television station in college. I sold advertising at a newspaper to pay for my human services career because I wanted to be a counselor. I wanted to be a counselor more than anything. I like talking to people. I like helping people. I like seeing people happy. The real story of how I got my job is it was created for me. I was working in car sales because someone told me that I couldn't do it. So I took their bet and I worked in car sales. And it was supposed to be a 90-day thing, and I was gonna make $500 from my friend who was like, you could sell anything but cars. And I ended up loving it. I loved it because I felt like home at the place where I worked.
I went to the Iron Maiden concert last night, which, by the way, was like a totally metal musical. Anyway, I met this person, and she was like, yes, I tried to buy a car, but the sales guy said I couldn't get financed. And so I was like, girl, what? Tell me your problems. So I listened to her story, and it turns out she was just at the wrong dealership with the wrong salesperson.
You guys, this is already so much better than the show that I did in Indiana. I drove all the way out in the middle of nowhere, like nowhere, Indiana, and I show up, and it's just like 4 old white guys. And I was like, you guys know I'm not a stripper, right? They didn't. That's $4.
I stayed for 3 years selling cars, and then they're like, hey, you're doing really good at social media marketing. Here's a position that we made for you. Will you take it? And I waited until the deadline, and I said yes, because I didn't want to give up the team that I was already working with, because it felt like family, so I didn't really want to leave them. But I've worked everywhere. I've worked at the St. Louis Zoo. I did children's comedy, and I worked with the sharks, stingrays, and horseshoe crabs. I have worked at alcohol and drug rehab facilities for teenage boys. I worked at a special ed school. Those jobs don't pay anything, so I was working full-time in human services fields so that I could feel like I was making a difference, a positive impact in the world. But because I couldn't afford to live, I was also working in the sales fields, like selling ads, selling space on the radio, anything I could make a commission-based income off of so that I could support my human services habit. Every person has a story, and that they're always hiding something. So my thing is, I don't necessarily care what they're hiding. I just want to alleviate any burden that they're carrying, because I know what it feels like inside my head. So I want other people to feel joy, because I had someone that reached out and helped me, and I want to be that helping hand for somebody else. I just like people. I just like seeing people happy. So a few months ago, I went through 61 sold out shows in a row. But the only show that I remember is show 62, because show 62 did not sell out. So I had all of this success, but all I could focus on was the break. Like, breaking that streak broke me. So this last few shows, whatever the universe was like giving me, I went through this weird struggle. My grandma died, my family doesn't get along, and so the winter for me was very hard, just emotionally, and I didn't do as many shows because I had all this stuff going on. I was still doing shows, but I wasn't doing as many shows.
I'm really, really fun, but I'm also really, really busy. Like, I'm so busy that when I left work today, I thought about eating yesterday's lunch that was still on the table for 2 reasons. 1, because I was just that fucking hungry. 2, because it would save me time. I wouldn't need to go to the gym if I ate that. I would just shit myself thin. It's the Salmonella Slim diet.
Seeing people smile, that makes me smile, because you can't really smile at someone and then not get a smile back.
I try to be positive no matter what. Like, no matter what, I want to look on the bright side, which means when I walk into a public restroom and it smells really, really bad, I like to think, hey, at least the toilet seat will be warm.
I take a ton of pictures, and people are always like, why? Like, stop with the photos. But I take pictures so that I can remember that moment. I can go back and say, hey, like, this is what I did, or hey, I was happy here, or oh my gosh, look how much fun we had, because it's a visual reminder of that moment of happiness. And I think that people think that I can just remember everything that I went through, but I can't. 1, because I have memory loss problems, and 2, because I just do so much stuff, and there's so much being thrown at me that I'm going through that I want to remember the happiest times. So I know some people post everything on Facebook, but I only try to post the positive stuff, because I don't want to look back at Facebook or have a memory pop up that isn't the best memory possible. I want it to be only the good things, because that's all I want to remember in life is the good things. It's super important for me to connect with the people that I'm performing in front of. Some people say that's my audience. I say those are my friends. I've never performed in front of people that I've walked away been like, look at my fans. It's always, look at all my new friends. It's a situation where I want to feel connected to people. So for me, that's how I connect with people. I see them smiling, so I smile back. And it does create this really weird, intimate setting where there's hundreds of people in a room, but in that moment, it's me in the front row, and that's it. It's me and the 3 people that I can see, and we're connecting. And I feel like those are the people that I impact more than anything. But I've had people that have sat in the back of the audience. I've had people that have sat in the back of the theater, in the back of the venue, that have come up to me after the show and said, hey, here's why this means the most to me. About a year ago, I had a guy come up to me after a show, and I saw him sitting in the audience, and he wasn't laughing. And so it became like a point to me, like that was my goal, like I'm gonna make him laugh. And he didn't laugh the whole show. And I was devastated. I had all these other people in stitches. The entire room is just rolling. But he's sitting there with his arms crossed, and he doesn't look happy. And so in my mind, I failed. But he came up to me after the show. He waited until everyone left. And when he's sitting there, I'm thinking, I pissed him off somehow, and he's gonna kill me. But I kind of went over to him and I was like, hey buddy, like, didn't enjoy the show? And he's like, I did. And he just started crying. He just started open crying, and it was just tear after tear. And he's like, I was gonna kill myself. And I just came here by myself, and I think that I can see the positive now. Because I talk about my life struggles, but I paint everything in a positive picture. I want people to understand that if you can't learn from it, laugh at it. Like, that's just life.
My favorite childhood game to play was Surprise Sex! It's not rape. It was just a really bad name for a game. But my friends and I, we grew up super Catholic. So my best friend and I used to play this game where we would hide a condom for the other person to find. And it would be like, surprise, you can have sex now. Here's your condom. Like you don't need like a boner or a boy or marriage, because we were super Catholic. And one night we had this like awesome night planned in the city. So I get a very special condom. I find a magnum-sized rum-flavored condom. And we go out and we are in the city and it's like the best night ever. And then because we're good Catholic girls, we drove home to take my grandma to church the next morning. And because my grandma is a super Catholic, we had to sit in the front row. And because I was out too late the night before, I had a bit of a sniffle. And again, because my grandma is a super grandma, she reaches in her jacket pocket, a jacket that looked eerily similar to the jacket my friend had on the night before. So in she reaches for a tissue, and out she pulls a magnum-sized rum-flavored condom. And she holds it up like the Holy Eucharist. And she just says, "But why is it rum-flavored?" Which, fun fact, that's how you get grandma to say blowjobs in Cracker Barrel later.
But there's like this store checkout clerk lady, and every time I'm like, she's always happy and I love her. And so I was like, hey, I'm Amber. And she was like, oh, I'm this person, because it was on her name tag. And I was like, do you have plans Friday night? Because that's like weird, right? Like as an adult, it's like, she doesn't know if I'm like hitting on her or like I'm a serial killer. Like she sees what I buy every week. And I feel like groceries tell you a lot about a person. Like if you look in someone's cart and they have milk and cereal and like kids' toys, like you know they're a mom. But if it's a dude and he has like milk and cereal, like he could be a college student who doesn't know how to cook. But I feel like she saw me with what I was checking out every week, and like she was always friendly. And it was hard for me to like figure out, is she friendly because it's her job, or is she friendly because like she thinks I could be her friend too? And like that's like the weird way of her being like, do you want to be my pal? Like I'm at work so I can't ask you because I still have to see you, and I don't want you to not come to my store, but I need friends. Like it's this weird thing of like, how do you make friends as an adult? So I gave her tickets and she came to my show and we hang out. My vet, I'm super close with my veterinarian. Because it's like a weird way. So my veterinarian saw me at my weakest points because my dog was dying, and I was like snot coming out of my face, and it's like I just felt like she was the kindest person ever, and I wanted to be friends with her more than anything, because she made me feel at home when I was next to her. She just has this like strong mom energy. Like she's not even a mom, she just exudes this like strong mom presence, and you just feel safe and happy around her. And she's my friend now. I actually got to return the favor a little bit because she was stuck in a snowstorm, and I went and picked her up, and then she sent me this huge like box of cheese lately. It was like, I love cheese. Cheese is the best. And then we hang out, and yeah, she's my real friend now. So yeah.
Fuck you for laughing. No, I do. I know that I'm beautiful, and like I also know that I'm fat. Even my shoes know that I'm fat. Like these used to be 6-inch stilettos. They crushed themselves. I recently found out that I was a little too fat when my boss suggested that losing weight might help with my performance at work, and I worked in a call center. It's fine. I decided to take her advice. I went to the doctor. I took his instructions. I put a fruit or a vegetable in my purse every morning. But now, that stuff just stinks and my back hurts. It's cool. So I decided to go to the gym. The gym is not for me either. The first thing that happened is I signed up for swimming lessons. I got a 90-year-old swimming instructor. Perfect. I love old men. I want one. So what happens is we get in the pool area. The first thing he says to me is, lay on my hands. I was like, shouldn't we get in the pool first? So we do. We get in the pool, and I lay on his hands, and he starts to like tickle my belly. And I was like, is this foreplay? Because I'm already wet.
You know, it's great for me to do shows, but emotionally, I use shows to distract myself from any negativity in my life because I am too busy to be sad. So I set up all of these shows knowing that, hey, I have this event that might happen, and it's gonna be very hard for me. So I set up this string of shows that was like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It was like all these shows in a row. It was like 3 weeks of just constant shows, and none of them were near each other. I went from Chicago to Peoria to Hannibal, Missouri. Then I did a private show in Pigeon Forge, and then a private show in Gatlinburg, and then I drove 8 hours and showed up to work that Wednesday morning, and I worked at my day job for a few hours, and then the next day I worked for a few hours. By a few hours, I mean like 10. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I had shows again. And I was working with a lot of new venues, so it's like a high stress point when it's the first show at a new venue and you don't know exactly how things are gonna go. Because I try to have everything written down. I have a really strong process. I've been doing this long enough. I have a great reputation because I have such a strong business sense. So I have all of this process written down, and I can email them and I can make them sign off on stuff. But at the end of the day, you don't know how their staff is really gonna behave when it's gonna be their biggest crowd ever.
I just wanna go for a ride. Cylinders open up, injectors coming alive.
So that's fine. I couldn't like lose any weight, no big deal. I decided to go to my friends, the drag queens. I was like, can't do anything about this. Can you help me with my makeup? And they're like, no, just eat it. At least you'll be pretty on the inside. The quickest cure for constipation is to run out of toilet paper during a thunderstorm. That's what I call a real shitstorm.
4-cylinder with a turbo strapped on it. Previous owner put a couple dents in the bonnet. Came from the dealership with 80,000 left on it. Chevrolet, 0 to 60 in about a day. If you run up bicycles, the only way I'll win a race. I hear the blow-up valve when I let off the pedal, going 20 miles an hour when I'm pedal to the metal. That's obscene and I am unseen, cause everyone in 10 cars in traffic are looking like me. And I can't see because my windshield is frosted 20 degrees. Sticking my head out the window when I hear a thunder ring. A total loss, no recovering.
Let's have a look.
Hi, I'm Amber. I'm trying to lose weight, but it seems like the healthier I eat, the more problems I have with my bowels.
I've had venue owners that they end up being afraid of the audience. I can bring in, they're used to like a crowd for them is maybe 100 people and their capacity is, let's say 300, and I can pull in 300 people and they're shocked. Every time they're like, how do you do this? And I'm like, isn't that what you were expecting? I told you this is how many tickets were out. And their staff isn't really prepared, the venue isn't really prepared. No matter how much I prepare them, I'm like, hey, I have all the tickets out. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, it's sold out. And they're like, are you sure? Like, did this really happen? I'm like, yeah. And I'm excited because like this should be their biggest night ever, but they're terrified because this is like new to their staff, and I think they have ideas of what comedy shows are like or what it's supposed to be like. And then I come in and they see me as a person and I'm super business minded, and they don't think that there's any way that I can be funny because I'm so organized, because I think people are surprised that I'm funny sometimes when they meet me when I'm in a business mindset first, because I am so business minded. I have everything down in a process. I have spreadsheets, I have marketing assessments. I have this whole list that breaks down the demographics of my customer base. And then I can tell them how it changed their customer base and where they should be looking for customers. So I think they don't think that I'm gonna be funny and that I get on stage. And it's not that I'm a different person, because everyone loves me when I'm on stage. That is like all of the fun stuff in my life condensed into 30 minutes or 45 minutes or however long I'm on stage. So that is a part of me, but I am so compartmentalized as a person that like they can't seem to see like there's no way that she could fit in this box because she fits in this one. So that's always fun to like surprise people.
I'm glad that we're connecting because earlier today I was feeling like a ghost. I was like waving to people and they weren't waving back. I walked to the bathroom, the automated lights failed to recognize
crazy crowds, and I've worked with bigger names. I produce shows that I wouldn't have normally produced because I'm like, the venue's too big. I don't want to take that big of a risk. And I did, and they did well. I travel a lot, and I think that everywhere you go, people are the same. And I mean that in the sense that you get what you look for. So you're always going to have people that are nice. You're always going to have people that are cliquish. You're always going to have the extroverted people that go out of their way to make you their friend. And I think what's unique about St. Louis is that we're in the Midwest, and sometimes we don't think that we can have success here because we're landlocked, because we're midway between LA and New York. There's a big joke in comedy that you grow up in the Midwest and then you leave and you go to LA or you go to New York so you can fly back to the Midwest and perform. So I think it's funny, like, I don't think that I need to leave this area because I'm doing well. So everyone's like, oh, are you gonna go to LA next? Are you gonna go to New York next? And I'm like, why would I leave when I'm doing what I love here? And they're like, oh, don't you wanna grow? And I'm like, those scenes are full of people that are trying to make it, and I'm making it here. So my thought process is, I'm halfway between LA and New York, so if people want me, they can come get me here.
But what happened was, I knew my friend was gonna get me back, and it was gonna be epic. So I waited, and then I forgot all about that shit. And for the purpose of this story, I was doing backflips and wheelies, not just mildly speeding on my motorcycle. So one day, I'm riding my motorcycle, and I get pulled over for the first time ever. And my first thought was, oh shit, I'm getting a seatbelt ticket. But what happened was, the cop comes up there, and I take off my helmet. It's like a cascade of curls and titties. He was not expecting it, and I was scared. And he was like, I need your insurance and registration. No problem, officer. I've got that. I'm going to step off my motorcycle, and I'm going to get the documents from under my seat. And I do. I get off my motorcycle, and I try to pop my seat off to where my storage compartment is. But the seat won't budge. And I'm wiggling it, and I'm jamming my fingers in there, and all of a sudden it just... It's like it's on springs. And it's the Niagara Falls of condoms. It's glow-in-the-dark lightsaber condoms, magnum condoms, finger-sized condoms. And the cop looks at me, looks at my motorcycle, looks at the pile of condoms, looks back at me and says, so you like to ride, huh? I threw my hands up and I said, sir, I'm only 17. That cop backed up to his car, got in, and drove away. And I was 24!
I played basketball, and my dad made me play like flag football. And I don't know what happened. I don't know what it was about me, but I grew up with more of my grandparents in my life. My mom is almost non-existent for me. She's not a major point in my life. And I know that sucks, but I have like a lot of motherly figures. Like I've collected, I wish I was closer with my mom. But at this point, like, it's not gonna happen. And if it was going to happen, it would have happened before I got successful. Because now it would be marred by like, hey, are you trying to get money from me? Oh yeah, you are. I don't know, my mom has never been to out of thousands of comedy shows, I don't think my mom has even made it to a full show. I don't have that type of relationship with my mom. She used to be close with my two sisters, but she's not close with them anymore either. Like, it's a weird situation because growing up, my mom always told me that she would never treat me how her mom treated her. And it's like this cycle that my mom always promised me that she was gonna break, and she didn't. So my mom got kicked out when she was 17, and I got kicked out when I was 15. So this whole, I'm gonna break the cycle, instead she just intensified it. So yeah, my dad can eat a dick. I have a lot of sense of my own mortality. I understand that I'm not going to be here forever. I understand that more than most people because I've actually like come pretty close to death more than once. But I had a blood clot on my brain, and it was like pretty rough. They misdiagnosed me like 6 times, and then I ended up in the hospital, and they're like, unfortunately, it's not a brain tumor. And I was like, what's worse than a brain tumor? And they're like, you have a massive blood clot on your brain. And I was like, shit, that sounds bad.
I want my notes written on my hand because I have $1 million body. I had a blood clot on my brain. For real, I did. Spent $1 million. I know you're like, well, that's not $1 million body. It fucking is. I'll tell you guys about that later.
I'm sorry, I don't belong here. How do I find the thing that I believe was the reason that I was probably spawned here? Will I ever know? Cause when it's late at night, got the pen, pad, paper, white, ready to absorb the black, the pain, the plight. Leave it up to me to weave the beat with secrets. Music is the only way to eat grist. Switch schools first day in the 3rd grade.
Why do you keep looking away, sir? These are not. Don't look at your wife. She can't save you. She's throwing you under the bus. You are. You must have something big in your pants. Probably a walnut, by the way you're sitting.
First day, who's the kid with the sore on his lip? And you wonder why he's not as sure as it gets. I wrote a note to a girl in class and she laughed at it. I took a seat next to the girl and she split. These are the things that haunt me when I'm writing.
To me, like, friendships are more important than family right now. Like, I love my sister. I have 2 sisters and 2 brothers, and I absolutely love one of each. But I think that's the nature of families. You can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family. And I think for me, the thing is, like, everyone's like, family is always there for you. No, they're not. When I was sick, my friends came to the hospital. My friends' parents got to the hospital before my dad never came. My mom showed up with my sister who had just had a baby. And so, like, I was dying and I was not her center of focus. Like, she was busy trying to, like, show off this new baby, and I'm like, just over here dying, no big deal, guys. So I think that, like, I completely changed my life after that. Like, I was with a guy. He's a great guy, but he's not a great guy for me. I was in a great job, but it wasn't a great job for me. I think that I was so busy trying to overcome stuff in life that I had all of this success. It was great success, but it wasn't great success for me. I was living my life trying to prove something to all of these people, and now I only live my life trying to prove something to myself.
Someone call a fire department because my lady garden's about to start a forest fire. That's right, I'm getting lasers on my lady cakes.
But I wouldn't change it because everything that's happened, all of the relationships, I wouldn't change anything because everything that's happened to me has made me who I am, and I like who I am. I'm a strong person. I'm a very empathetic person. I'm a giving person. I'm a person who's making a positive impact on the world around me. So if you take out anything that's happened to me, good or bad, it changes who I am. My mom and dad are still married, but they shouldn't be. They hate each other. They showed me the opposite of what a relationship should be. It sucks because I think my 2 sisters, especially, their relationships were based on what our parents were. They thought that's what love was. But fortunately, I was close enough to my grandparents who had been married for over 60 years, and they were married for over 60 years and they still loved each other. It wasn't, oh, they were married for over 60 years and they fight like cats and dogs. It was, they were still very much in love with each other. Like, I remember thinking, like, ooh, that's gross. Like he touched her on the butt at breakfast. I have my grandparents' table like that I sat and ate at on Sundays. It's in my house now, and I eat at it on Sundays too. And it's like the one place that I feel just super comfortable, and like it just brings me back to like being with them and feeling loved.
So this is funny. I don't know if I've ever told Amber this, but I met Amber through working at the SIU Foundation. So we worked in a call center that raises money and funds for the college. As you know, Amber is larger than life. She has a huge personality. And so when I first met her, I just never met anyone like her before. And we weren't necessarily best friends at first. We were more acquaintances and knew each other. And she was really, really good at fundraising. And I remember watching her be on the phone for 3 hours with someone who hadn't donated anything in 10 years. And all of a sudden she'd be like, okay, I'm going to confirm that you're donating $10,000. We'd all be like, Amber, are you serious? No way.
I only met Amber because my roommate was dating her roommate. So that's really how we first started to interact. And then of course, I think you develop kind of like a bond where you're kind of talking about what your roommates are doing, and then you kind of slowly start to hang out more and more. And actually, Amber started to, I think we had the same class together, so we were in the same major. So then we figured out we had a class together. So then we started to help each other with studying for quizzes and sharing notes and all that stuff. So it wasn't immediate, but it was, we slowly started to just become really good friends in college.
So we had some mutual friends, and I actually like comedy a lot. I mean, who doesn't? When times get hard, you want to laugh. But in our area, it's kind of very, very limited on the types of people that you can get coming into Southern Illinois. And I can't remember the exact time, but I remember going to an event, and Amber, and I remember telling her afterwards, I said, I am just not a fan of female comedians. They all have kind of the same act, and they kind of whine, and it's just like, there's a medium of like beginning, middle, and end of everything. It deals with a boyfriend. They're horrible in bed. They're just abusive. They're horrible. Blah, 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 blah. Amber's comedy was very guy-like. It was kind of like a combination of frat versus adult versus a little bit of, Adult Swim. And I loved her humor a lot. And we just started talking, and the scenes that we kind of crossed, the comedy scenes were really good. And it got really interesting for a while because I didn't see her, and then she came back into the area, and then she presented in the building that I had my office at, my digital marketing company. And it was just, she's definitely those types of people that you cannot see for a month or a year, and then you just kind of pick right up where you left off.
So I have an older brother whose name is Aaron. He's like 16 months older than me. We used to be best friends, and then now I don't even know where he lives or how many kids he has. It's not for lack of trying on my part, but I think that how our family dynamic is that it's probably super painful for him to like have any type of relationship with me, because our parents try to use us as pawns, and so they kind of like pit us against each other without some of the kids realizing it, or it's just easier to separate completely from the family for him emotionally. And for me too, like for me, my family is what it is. Like, I'm not going to change them, so I let them in as far as I want to, and then I always maintain an exit. So my situation with my family is that at family gatherings, I always make sure that I have a clean path to the door so that when I want to leave, I can, because I know when it's time to leave. My sister has a wedding coming up, and my main goal is for her to feel happy at her wedding, and for my dad to not ruin it, and for my family to just fake getting along for a weekend. And my biggest fear is that she won't have the dream wedding that she's always wanted, because my family will ruin it. I think that they assume that everyone that's in comedy has like this traumatic past that they're dealing with on stage. And I think for me, it's about celebrating the fact that I'm in a good place. So it's like, again, if I can't learn from it or I can't fix it, I can laugh at it, because there's some stuff that growing up, I just try not to think about.
No, I believe that we should always look on the bright side. Let me tell you guys a secret. I shit in my yard once. It's a true story. So I recently bought a house. Give it up for me. Because if you bought a house, you know that's fucking stressful. So what happened was I bought a house by myself, and I'm a strong, independent female. These boys are sitting in the back. No, what happened was I was really stressed out about buying this house, and so the realtor came over, and she's like, "Hey, all the neighborhood kids are playing in your yard." And I was like, "So?" She's like, "You gotta get them fucking kids out of your yard." Pardon my American. She's like, "You gotta get these kids out of your yard." And I was like, "Why?" "They're gonna raise your insurance premiums." Most terrifying sentence I've ever heard in my life. So I was like, I don't want to yell at these kids too much. I'm stressed out, so I signed up for a day at the spa. I get there to have all the hair ripped out of my vagina. Now, I've had waxes before, but not like this. She put hot wax right on my special spot. Right on my man boobs. Right on my phone button. Talking about my clitoris. Judging by your wax reaction, you don't know where they're at, so I'm just letting you know what's coming right at you. You look for it tonight. It's Valentine's Day. And just to let you know, sometimes it moves. But anyway, there I am with hot wax right on the special spot. And that's my favorite part of my body. So I decided to Google alternative wax removal methods. So I reached for my phone. And at that exact moment, my waxer overestimated my fat to fit ratio. So I go to reach for my phone, and she goes in to reach for the wax. But instead, she reaches in to me. Got a finger blessed by my waxer. Side note, because what happened was, my vagina turned into a Chinese finger trap, which is
fine. And I think that I stopped apologizing for taking up space. I think that part of being a woman is you're taught to apologize constantly. You say, "I'm sorry I was late," rather than "thank you for waiting for me." And I think that that little tweak in phrasing, it's about valuing yourself too, because sometimes as females, I think we're taught to like serve other people, especially like how I was brought up. I think for a lot of comedians, it's a tool that they use for self-expression. And for me, comedy is a tool for healing, but not necessarily healing for me. Like, I've dealt with what I have to deal with, but I think that I know how broken people can be inside. And so I just want to help people feel happy and whole, and to let them know, like, it doesn't matter what you went through, you can overcome it. Like, your past doesn't define your future, because people use their background as an excuse, and that pisses me off. Because I think growing up, let's say that you have an alcoholic father and 2 kids. You can have one kid's perspective be, my dad's an alcoholic, so I'm going to be an alcoholic. And the other kid's perspective can be, my dad's an alcoholic, so I'm not going to drink at all. Because you can have the exact same environment growing up as someone else, and you can be successful and they can be a shit wagon. And it just depends on your outlook. Everything is perspective based. So if you're like, you know what, I grew up like this, and I'm not going to let that define who I am, I'm going to grow from that, then you're going to do okay. But if you think about how you grew up and you use that as an excuse, then you're never going to be better than your past. You have to just learn to learn from it. I think that you have to learn to not define yourself by what's happened to you, but define yourself by how you grew from it. I had a lot of faux parents, like a lot of people that stepped up that didn't have to, that kind of like took care of me. I had a community of people that stepped up to make sure like I understood that I could go to college. So Kathy literally put me in her van and she drove me down to college and said, hey, you can get out of here if you want. You don't have to be trapped. And so I went to college. And I don't think without Kathy, I wouldn't have made it to school. I would have probably ended up working in a bar and just become kind of a shit wagon.
Speaking of bathrooms, some of you found out my favorite game to play. Bathroom Surprise. That's where I use a public restroom and forget to lock the door, and you guys walk in and are like, whoa, she's taking a shit with her clothes off. Now, speaking of bathrooms, I do want to let you guys know right here and right now, because of my history in life, I believe that every moment is precious. Especially moments of me and you. I do. I believe that we should always look on the bright side no matter what. Like when I walk into a public restroom and it smells really, really bad, I like to think, hey, at least the toilet seat will be warm. Did you get it, or is she going to explain later?
Giving out those cards for me is twofold, because it allows me to make someone else feel really happy, but secretly it makes me feel happy because I feed off of their joy. It also feeds into like, hey, life is circular, because whatever I put out there is whatever I'm going to get back. So I hope that I have a positive impact on this world. I hope the legacy that I leave behind is a good one. I have a lot of sense of my own mortality. I understand that I'm not going to be here forever. Everyone wants to be successful, and everyone will use each other to be successful at no matter the cost. So being friends with a comedian can be very hard. You have to understand why people are really being friends with you. For me, because I do have a little bit of success, I feel like an outsider to the group sometimes. But on the flip side, like, I also can help new people get involved in the comedy scene, and they can do really well. So I'll kind of like take them under my wing, and because I know that this group does this kind of comedy, or this group does this kind of comedy, the St. Louis comedy scene is kind of unique in the sense that we have some really strong comedy clubs, which means there's some really great open mics at the comedy clubs. Yeah, there's some really great open mics at the comedy clubs, but we also have a really strong indie scene, which means like comedy shows in coffee shops, in bookstores, in places that there's not normally like comedy or entertainment. You get these group of artists, these group of comedians that they use it as like almost an emotional release. They're up on stage, they're telling jokes, and sometimes they eat shit on stage. But it's really fun to like see the other comedians like be supportive of that person. So that's really awesome about the St. Louis comedy scene. We also have a strong festival. I've never been a part of the festival, but whatevs. I'm so really happy that they have it. It sucks sometimes being successful, because you don't get included in other things, because people think that you're above that, or people think that you won't understand the situation. And it's like, I just want to help them. So I just want to be asked, and I'll help them if I can. If I can't, then it's not a reflection on them asking me. It's a reflection on like, hey, like I finally realized I have to look out for myself first and foremost. Like, I'll help people as much as possible, but at the end of the day, like, I have to look out for myself. At the end of the day, like, I don't want to spend time with a group of people that they're just fighting with each other. So I would immediately like try to get the group to move on. I would use comedy as a tool of distraction, where I'd be like, if Derek and Chris were fighting, I would be like, immediately tell a funny story about Katrina and me did this, or Adam and I did this, or I think that I use it as a distraction tool sometimes. But I also think that like I hang out with people that experience some real shit, so I would use it as a, let's soften the blow of something bad happening. So let's say that sometimes, unfortunately, as you get older, your group of friends only really gets together for like really sad events or really like big happy events. So like you may not be able to make someone's wedding, but you're sure as shit gonna make their mom's funeral. So you don't see people for like the things that you always want to see people for. Sometimes like you just know that you need to be there for that person, so you just drop everything so that you can show up if they're in the hospital, or if their mom died, or whatever they need you for. Like, you just know when a person needs you. And so the group of friends will come back together, and I finally have that in life, and I'm like super appreciative of it.
So I get there, and it's a 90-year-old Asian woman. That's cool. I love Asians. I want one. It's racist if you don't laugh. Stop looking around. Are there Asians in here? Come on, laugh. I want them to teach me skills and cooking and fun stuff. And Asians are smart. We'll get to that later. But what happened was this 90-year-old, 80-pound Asian woman looks me up and down and says, "Go with me." Cool. So I follow her. She leads me into a room. She shuts the door. It's a private foot massage. Cool. Maybe she looks at me and knows my feet smell. They do. That's not my toots. It's my toes. But what happened was, she looks at me and she says, "Take off all your clothes." I said, "No, ma'am. This is foot massage." She assumes a karate stance. "Take off your clothes." So of course I fucking did it. So she has me lay butt naked. The ghosts are here. So she has me lay butt naked, face down on the table. And she starts to come up to me, and she starts to aggressively rub my scalp. So I go to delicately put my head off the table so I can tell her, "Ma'am, that's a bit too much pressure." That didn't happen. My head barely left that table. She goes, "Relax!" Ma'am, it's hard to relax Just when I thought I could stand it, she jumps on top of me on the table. Now, picture this. I've had a lot of vagina already for the day. Her vagina is directly above my head. She starts rubbing my back and my butt. And with that exact moment that I remembered, I had just had a wax. And I was just hoping that she didn't get stuck. Because I didn't want to walk around with the 80-pound Asian in my butt crack. But my first thought was, oh shit, I hope I don't tooth and blow her off the table. Thankfully, the residual wax helped to hold my butt cheeks together a little. And then she... I don't know if you guys see in the back, but I'm chubby, that was straight in. Like my both feet left the floor and everything. But what happened was, she jumped straight off the table, and she looked at my feet, just looked at them, didn't touch them. And she says, "Are you constipated?" I said, "No, ma'am." "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, I just had my asshole waxed. Anything that was stuck got ripped right on out." And then, she used her arm and her Asian magic to measure the distance between my knee and my ankle. And then she judo chopped me right beside my leg. And I've never had a shit more in my life. I was naked. I threw a titty over each shoulder, ran down the hall, and I shat. I shat so much that what I thought about eating tomorrow came out of me. That's when I realized that's why I was on Groupon. It was 4 minutes of massage and 56 minutes of just shitting. But the story doesn't end there. So I think the shitstorm is over. And I get in my truck and I drive home to my new house. Now I just started living there, so the neighbors hadn't had time to like welcome me in and stuff. So the minute they see me during the daytime, because I'm a professional comedian, I travel a lot, and I go out real looking fancy. I come back the next morning not looking so hot. They thought I was a prostitute. They wanted to find out. So they see my truck enter the neighborhood, and the phone tree goes off, and they start to descend upon my house with their cookies, their balloons, their shit-colored brownies. And I get in my yard, and I try to unlock my fence. Can't get the key to pop the lock. About the same time the lock pops open, so does my butthole. Now I'm a lady. I'm a delicate feminine flower, in case you didn't notice. I wear a dress at all times. So conveniently, it was springtime. I didn't have leggings on, so I just crouched down in my yard in my dress. You don't know what I was doing, sir. Could have been looking for a 4-leaf clover. You don't know. It was at that exact moment the entire neighborhood saw me shitting in my yard. So now they call me yard shitter. The thing is, though, it's not that bad. Because I believe in looking on the bright side. And you know what? Their fucking kids don't play in my yard anymore.
Oh shit, I'm successful because I'm business-minded and organized. I'm successful because I'm analytical. I'm successful because I have a sales background. I'm successful because I don't take no for an answer. I'm successful because I overanalyze myself and the show. So I think that I started producing shows because I couldn't get on shows. I wasn't the popular kid. I wasn't as confident as I am now. I started producing shows as a way to get on shows because I felt like I wasn't getting booked as often as I should have been. There is like this weird men's club where I think people book comedy based on what they think is funny and what they relate to. And unfortunately, in comedy, it's a bunch of like old white dudes. So that ends up being a lot of old white dudes doing an entire show. If someone's not going to open a door for me, I'll create a door. So I did. I had a background in kind of organizing events. I had a background in fundraising. And so I organized my own events. And I said, hey, I'm going to put on my own comedy show. And people that went to open mics were like, you can't do that. And I'm like, I just did. I work a lot of my life that way. If I stopped and asked permission for everything that I do, everyone would stop me and be like, it's never been done like that. Or they would say, you can't do that. So I just wait until after and I'm like, hey, I did this. And they're like, you can't do that. And I'm like, I already did. Because unfortunately in comedy, it is about who you know, and it is about people that are booking what they feel similar to. So if you have a bunch of white males, they're gonna book a bunch of white males. So on my shows, I think that I try to book as many females as possible. I try to make it a super diverse lineup. I understand, for me, producing a show, I understand that I may not think everyone is funny, but if the audience thinks that person is funny, I'll book them. As long as I get along with them, they're business minded. But if the person is like stupid funny, like if they're just absolutely funny, but I don't trust that person that they're gonna show up on time or that they have the marketability, then it doesn't matter how funny I think they are. I can't book them from a business standpoint. I try to book more females. I try to make it easier for the people behind me. Yeah, it's hard for women to get booked. It's also really hard for women to like get booked for the right reasons, because I want to be booked because I'm funny. I don't want to be booked because I'm like hot, which obviously I have that problem all the time. But I think that my success is defined by how hard I'm willing to work for myself. So I'm not going to trust somebody else to work for me. I'm just going to do it myself. Open mics are only part of the puzzle because you have to have stage presence, which is an easy thing to have in front of a group of people. You don't necessarily have to have a mic. It's, hey, are you charismatic in front of a group of people? You have to have the ability to write and speak and to be comfortable in front of groups of people. And I think that there's a lot of people who live in the Midwest or who live far away from where a comedy open mic is, and they think, I can't do comedy. My advice to them would be to go to a music open mic and say, hey, can I tell some funny stories, and go from there. Now, open mics are a great tool for networking. Open mics are a really great tool for networking. Open mics are a great tool for becoming more confident and comfortable on stage. How to use the mic, how to lower it, and those are all important things. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is like, are you charismatic? Because if you drop the microphone but you can recover from that, like, you're okay. I don't think open mics are the end-all be-all of comedy. I think that being able to perform in front of people, whether it's a small group of new people you just met or a huge group at an open mic, they're both equally important. So, but if you don't have a comedy open mic around you, just practice your material in front of your friends or go to a music open mic and see if they'll let you do comedy there. So as long as you can spread your comedy message any way you can. I don't necessarily care what they think about me. I just want them to leave my shows feeling happy. I want them to leave feeling like, hey, we had a good time tonight. I want them to leave feeling happier than they walked in. I want people to be able to sit down at a show and forget about all the cares and just live and laugh and to be happy, even if it's only for 90 minutes at a time.
No, I definitely think it's who Amber is. So it's funny too. I don't think I've ever told Amber this, but when I first, met her and saw her, I guess, at the SIU Foundation, I definitely noticed that she liked attention. She was, very loud and, always laughing and talking to everyone. And so, it makes sense that she's someone who would want to interact with other people. And she thrives on that, period. Her relationships are everything to her. And, being social is something that's extremely important to her. So no, that does not surprise me at all. Now, when I first started hanging out with Amber, I didn't necessarily know she ever wanted to become a comedian. So when she started talking about it, that was new to me, but not necessarily surprising. So I think any job or career or path that Amber takes is going to have to involve, working with people. Absolutely. That's where she thrives.
When I found out that Amber had her health issues, I was I thought that I think that's when when you start to really think about the relationship you have with somebody, because I thought that she was really close to not making it, and that's kind of what she was saying, that she almost did die. So that really hit home for me. And I know that I drove down to Carbondale. I was living in St. Louis at the time, and she was still in Carbondale, and I just came to see her, and it was just really scary. And it was scary after that, because I wasn't sure that at that time, I think if you would have bumped into her, she could have had an episode. So with her blood clot. So I was just really nervous and worried about her. And I think that that really probably made us closer too.
Amber is just one of those people. I'm not real good at remembering things. I'm very good at remembering emotions and how people make me feel, because in the end, I think that's what really matters, and that's what I connect with personally. But the first time that I really remembered connecting with her was when she did a show in the building at Irons in the Fire in Carterville, and very small venue. She crushes small venues. I mean, I have never seen anybody connect with a small group. I've never really seen her at a large scale. I know she would crush that too, but there's just something that flips a switch. And Amber, when she's in those smaller group settings, she owns the room. Like, she controls that. Any scenario that you could put her in, she's got an outcome. And I think that's one reason why I really liked her. Being former military, you always have to have a plan, and you're always, I didn't have to work necessarily during combat times. I was in a combat zone in Saudi, but you get dropped in, you have to know that when the shit hits the fan, what are you going to do? And comedy is no different. You either have it or you don't. And when you get stuck in a room with some pretty rough, crowded people, things can go south fast. I would never have a problem with she could have been in the military. I won't tell this to her face, but she probably would have been a great Marine. Though she probably doesn't really like doing crayons as much as most of the Marines do. Little pun and jab at my Marine buddies. But it's not so much her content, it's her pace, it's her flow. She has crafted this over time, and I honestly wish I could have met her early on in her career to see her evolve. She's going to keep going. She's going to keep going. And I think when I saw her, she had red hair, which I'm a big fan of red hair anyways. And I thought, okay, this girl's going to be sassy, and she delivered. And anytime that you can watch a comedian and it's not so much their stick, whether it's if they talk about their size or anything, it's their personality. When you see them for them, and this is Amber's thing. Amber was meant to do comedy. And it just cracks me up every time that we get on the phone, or just out of the blue she calls me. It's absolutely just, it blows my mind. It's not a one specific act. It's her whole act. It's just her. She is funny, and that's what makes it real for her. But it's her work ethic. It's her tenacity. Like, she is not going to give up, and she is going to not just rely on certain jokes or certain content. That's what I'm saying. She is 100%, she's a fighter. And I think that industry will be very fortunate to have her and have that style, because I don't think if she keeps surrounding herself with good people, I just don't think that she's going to waver or change to be something that she's not. I just can't see that. But again, I can't predict that. That's going to be her. I mean, she's 100% in charge of her own destiny, and I know she'll do the best that she can, but I think she wants more. I think she wants to decide when that's right. And if she's truly what I think she is, and she's methodical, everything that she's doing, these steps, this documentary that you're doing, these are all steps to get her. She's not trying to go from zero to instant fame. She's laying a foundation. Let's be honest. She's putting stuff in place, and it doesn't happen overnight. She's putting in the due diligence and the time. So I'd like to give her a little bit more credit than what I think if she could just hang. I think she's wanting to do this where it's going to be a foundation where she can build and just pretty much choose what she wants. She'll put it in the back end. Well, I didn't mean it that way.
So recently I've had a ton of success in comedy, and that has impacted my friendships in a certain way, because now it's like suddenly the people that didn't want to have anything to do with me before are suddenly reaching out or suddenly bragging about how they know me, and it's like, where were you 2 years ago when I was trying to get you to share a flyer? So now these people will share my success, and I love that. That's awesome. I want people to share it, but it's like, where were you 2 years ago? The struggle is real. I think that success is helping define my friendships, because I felt like my entire life I didn't fit in. I have felt like my entire life I couldn't find a group of people that I was in that circle. You couldn't look at a group of people and be like, she belongs with those people. And now I have that, and it's gonna take a lot for me to give up being in that circle to allow other people in, because it's people messaging me that are like, hey, best friend, and I'm like, who is this? And they're like, can I get tickets to this show or that show? Sometimes it's not even my show. It's weird, this concept of successful people bringing out all of these leeches that want to become your friend, but for all the wrong reasons. It's this false friendship thing. The real friends know that sometimes after a show, I experience dopamine drop. A lot of people do. It's you are here and you're on top of the world, and 300 people love you and you're the center of attention. And then you go home and you're driving and you're alone. Or you go back to the hotel room and you're alone. So you go from being here to here. It's your serotonin levels and your dopamine just playing this huge trick on you. And it's I know that it's gonna happen, but it still hurts every time.
Fuck that. I'm heartily Cardi B, better stay far from me, cause you're gon' get John F. Kennedy if you go bar to bar with me. Brain matter on your Rolls Royce, magic bullets have no choice. I'm tired of hearing your dumb auto-tune voice. You're like Bugatti boys, you're stupid and repetitive. Everyone in the music biz is all on them sedatives. You could be the hardest working person, but these people keep on choosing less wordy verses, so I don't even think it's worth it. I don't know, but everyone else has gotta know. You gotta know. It's harder to write like this. Anybody wanna come and get this dick they can. Need me like tryptophan, wait till the shit hits fan. And you wonder why everyone in your community's fucked up and out here doing time. That's cause all you say to them is bitches, money, weed, illegal guns and drug peddling. You should be doing the opposite of what they say to you, cause if you play it through, the only person you're playing is you. Skipping school, committing robbery, selling Molly commodities, CSI investigating some casualties. And that one day could be you or your friends, though sitting true on the fence, nothing but wooden boards for defense. As you try to glamorize, marketing, strategize, and pay for Instagram, advertise, pulling the wool right over their eyes. It's a lie, I'm the edge of the blade of a samurai, so I just cut to the truth of the fruit detective pair of eyes. Hit or miss, I guess it was a hit. 17 weeks later at the top of the charts, that's a win. But it's really just a song for Little Sour Patch Kids.